Hi, I'm Carol Parkin. I'm Don and Louise's youngest daughter. On behalf of the Westover family, I would like to welcome family members and friends of Don and Louise who have joined in our reunion to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of our parents. And I would like to also welcome all others who have taken the time to view this celebration video. Some of us came into the Westover family by birth, while others of us arrived by adoption or through marriage. We are, however, all here, and each of us is an integral part of this great family. Dad was born 100 years ago last year, and Mom was born 100 years ago next spring. We have produced this video to hopefully give all of us who view it a better insight into our family heritage, a brief glimpse into the lives of our parents, Don and Louise, and their children, and a review of the highlights of the events in their lives and some of the accomplishments they have achieved in life. This video is also intended to give viewers an opportunity to get to know a little better the rest of us who make up the posterity of Don and Louise Westover. Each of Mom and Dad's 2 sons and 3 daughters will on this video not only review brief memories they have of their parents, but they will also introduce their spouses, their children and spouses, their grandchildren and spouses, and their great-grandchildren who make up this family.
Dad's heritage comes through Sweden, Denmark, Germany, and England as his ancestors were introduced to the gospel. Dad's maternal grandfather, John Bushman, was born in Nauvoo, Illinois in 1843. He traveled by covered wagon with his parents, Martin Bushman and Elizabeth Dagan, to the Salt Lake Valley when the Saints were driven out of Nauvoo. Before leaving Nauvoo, John and his family were sealed in the Nauvoo temple, and his dad took John and his brothers into the temple to see the baptismal font sitting on the backs of 12 white oxen, a sight he always remembered. He grew up in the Lehigh area and married Lois Smith in 1865. He also married Mary Ann Peterson in 1876. Both marriages were in the St. George Temple. Mary Ann was born in Winstrup, Denmark in 1857 and immigrated to Utah with her parents, Jens Peterson and Maren Frost, after they had joined the church in Denmark. Dad's paternal grandfather, Edwin Lycurgus Westover, was born in 1845 near Mechanicsburg, Ohio, to Edwin Ruthven Westover and Sarah Sophia Darrow. His family joined the church when he was 5 years old and moved to the St. George area. As an adult, he later moved to Grantsville, Utah in 1873. He met and a year later married Joanna Matilda Eriksson, who was born near Gorsburg, Sweden in 1855, and who immigrated to Utah with her parents, Sven Eriksson and Maria Bengston, from Sweden after joining the church there. Both of Dad's grandfathers were called with their families to help settle the Little Colorado River Valley, Arizona area in 1876. Both families settled in Allen's Camp, later renamed St. Joseph, and even later renamed again Joseph City. Dad's father, John Lycurgus Westover, was born at Allen's Camp, St. Joseph, Arizona in 1880 to Edwin Lycurgus Westover and Joanna Matilda Eriksson. Dad's mother, Maren Adele Bushman, was also born in St. Joseph the next year in 1881 to John Bushman and Mary Ann Peterson. Dad's parents, John Lycurgus and Marin Adele, met each other in St. Joseph, courted, and were married in 1902. They traveled 3 weeks each way by covered wagon to be married in the Salt Lake Temple. Donald Erickson Westover was born on March 25, 1906 in Joseph City, Arizona, in his grandmother Westover's home. He was the second child of John and Adele Bushman Westover. His older brother was Earl. Then came Mary, Victor, Wallace, Pearl, Russell, Ruth, Velma, June, and Ross. The family lived in the home that John built for Adele, which grew as the family grew. There was no indoor plumbing until 1934, which was 2 years after Don and Louise were married. Toilet paper did not exist for them. Only the Sears catalog pages served this purpose. Then there was the Saturday night special, which was a bath in a number 3 wash tub in front of the kitchen stove. The family read and studied by kerosene lamp until the late 1920s, when electricity came to town. Dad's parents bought the first electric refrigerator in town in 1930. It was a GE, which lasted as long as its owners. Most food that needed to be cooled was kept in the dirt-walled cellar, including the milk, which was stored in cans. The cream rose to the top to be skimmed to make homemade butter or home-cranked ice cream. As a special treat for the children, they spread the thick cream on homemade bread and sprinkled it with sugar. Dad was a serious, responsible, hard-working child, which prepared him well for a life full of service to his family and leadership in the church. He was a pioneer and was responsible for establishing the church from the ground up in Yuma. Don's and Louise's family lived in the mission field and were always aware that their example was important. Dad always served the community in many capacities and was well respected for his honesty and wisdom. Education was a priority that Don's parents set for their family. Dad attended school in Joseph City through the 8th grade and then went on to Snowflake Academy, where he graduated in 1925 from high school. Prior to his mission call to the southern states, he received his patriarchal blessing, which inspired and guided him throughout his life. Dad worked for Standard Oil before his mission for 2 years, and after he came home until he retired over 40 years later. During his employment, he worked in Holbrook, Flagstaff, Wickenburg, Clarkdale, and Yuma. From his beginnings as a shy boy, he grew into a confident young man, learning from fulfilling responsibilities, hard work, and obedience to counsel to an ongoing, friendly, and helpful adult. Dad's father bought the first car in Joseph City, a Model T Ford. That began his interest in cars. Dad told about his first trip to Holbrook in that car. It was 12 miles and included 18 flat tires that had to be repaired along the roadside the old-fashioned way. The road trip took all day. A few years later began his appreciation of cars and he owned many. Two early ones were a Chrysler Roadster and a Ford Model A. He shared his cars with his brothers as a good big brother would. Uncle Russell said of Dad, he always had a good car because he always took care of it. Don's children remembered that his cars were washed regularly, always in perfect repair, and full of gas. Dad's siblings remember that he was kind and considerate of their parents and of his brothers and sisters, considering their needs above his own. He brought fancy Easter eggs from the big city to his sisters after his mission. Ruth remembered that he baptized her before he left on his mission. He and his brothers supported Ross on his mission. When coming to visit family, he always brought melons, citrus, fruit, and pecans from Yuma. His siblings looked up at him as a model throughout their lives. He was the do-it man before the phrase was used by President Kimball.
Our mother was born Louise Solomon on April Fool's Day, April 1st, 1908. Grandpa was expecting a boy, so Mom really fooled him. Mom's paternal grandparents, William Henry Solomon and Elizabeth Drew Solomon, joined the church in Truro, Cornwall, England, and later immigrated to the Salt Lake City, Utah area with their family in 1861. Mom's father, Edwin Drew Solomon, was born in Salt Lake City in 1864. William Henry was called by Brigham Young to go with his family to Arizona in 1873 to help colonize the Chamois-Taylor area. Mom's maternal grandparents, Cyrus Morgan Jennings and Hannah Jane Hanson, also joined the church in England, and they also later immigrated to Utah. Mom's mother, Elnora Ann Jennings, was born in 1875 in Rockville, Utah. She moved with her family to Taylor, Arizona when she was 2 years old in 1887. Edwin met and courted Elnora Ann in and around the Chamois-Taylor area. They were married in 1894 in the St. George Temple. They lived on a ranch near Chamois, Arizona, and raised their family there before moving to Mesa, Arizona. Mom was the 8th of 11 children born to them. Their first 2 children were twin girls, Effie Jane and Ivy Ann, who both died when they were only 4 days old. Mom's older brother Ivan also died, less than a year before Mom was born. He was just over 1 year old. Mom's older sister Flossie also died at age 16, when Mom was only 4 years old. Mom grew up the third of 5 living girls. She also had 2 living brothers. Rich was the oldest child, then Bessie, followed by Rilla, then Mom, Leah, Bert, and Elnora, who was the youngest. As a very tiny child, Mother fell asleep in the family's buckboard wagon as they were on their way to visit friends on a Sunday afternoon. Rather than wake her up, Grandma left her asleep in the wagon and kept checking on her. The last time she checked, they found Louise missing, and everyone scattered to look for her, very concerned because there was a canal nearby. Grandpa finally found her, put her on his shoulders, and headed back. When asked where she had been and what she'd been doing, she said, "I was just wondering where Mama was." When Mother and her sisters were teenagers, they often had the responsibility of doing dishes and cleaning up the kitchen. Grandpa had papered the walls of the old ranch house kitchen with newspaper. Realizing that the girls were puttering while reading the papers and not finishing their chores in a timely way, he repapered the walls, turning the papers upside down this time. The boys and the girls all worked hard on the ranch. Louise was gentle and kind, but learned the lessons of thrift, hard work and doing your part. She learned the lessons of waste not, want not, use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without, and necessity is the mother of invention very well. She used to tell us how on the ranch they learned that it was important to use every possible part of an animal. She told of eating beef tripe and brains when she was growing up. Mother had many good friends, 4 of whom were her very own sisters, Bessie, Rilla, Leah, and Elnora. She told of going to dances at the Mazzona with her friends. We can just picture them getting all dressed up for the Saturday night dances. This was the 20s, the Flapper and Charleston era. Mom was a very pretty girl, and we're sure she turned many young men's heads. Mom loved children and went to school to become a teacher. Every day she rode a horse the 5 or 6 miles from Broadway Road in Mesa to the Tempe Normal School campus, from which she graduated 2 years later in 1928. She taught school at Webster Elementary in Mesa, where she had attended school as a child. She taught for about 2 years before meeting Dad. Education was very important to her family, and as each child graduated from college, they each took the responsibility of helping a younger sibling get through school. What an example of unity and love. When Mom and Dad met, he was working for Standard Oil Company in Flagstaff, and Mom was teaching at Webster School in Mesa.
Dad had previously made the acquaintance of Mother's sister, Rilla, and on a trip to the valley in 1930, he decided to stop and say hello. When he arrived and knocked at the door, he was greeted by Louise, whom he had not met.
Mother remembered being a little embarrassed because she had been doing dishes and still had on her apron.
Dad, on the other hand, remembered being quite taken with this lovely, dark-haired, brown-eyed young lady.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
They corresponded and dated until June 15, 1931,
when they were married in the Arizona temple.
On this same day, Mom's brother, Rich, and his bride, Leona Crandall, were married in the temple also.
And following the nuptials, the two couples started out on their honeymoon trips together, caravanning. The story goes that Rich was driving a brand new car and didn't want to go very fast. Eventually, the couples went separate directions.
Mom and Dad heading for San Francisco, enjoying many beautiful areas along the way. Yosemite, the Redwoods, the beach, and many other areas.
Wickenburg, Arizona was the couple's first home and place where their first child, Joanne, was born.
Another transfer soon came, this time to Clarkdale, where a son, Jim, was born.
Still another move was made, this time to Yuma, Arizona.
Here, 2 more daughters, Nancy and Carol, and another son, Bruce, joined the family.
There were very few members of the church there when they arrived in Yuma.
The Saints were holding Sunday school in primary, but soon a branch was organized.
Dad was set apart as branch president and served in that position for 7 years.
Mom and Dad were really pioneers for the church in this part of the Lord's vineyard.
We as children felt blessed to have the experience of growing up in the mission field because it made us strong in our testimonies of the gospel. We also had a warm, loving branch family to support us. It was a wonderful place to grow up.
Mom and Dad's 35 years in Yuma were filled with church service, dear friends, several homes, and community service. For several years, the church organization consisted of the Yuma branch, which was part of the Yuma district of the California Mission.
Mom and Dad were always busy and active in church callings and included us whenever possible in activities that would strengthen our testimonies by allowing us to serve.
Church during these years was held in a variety of places before Yuma had a chapel. The first place where we met in Yuma was the Westover home,
followed by the Veterans Hall, the Women's Club, in one of the members' typewriter shop, and the Seventh-day Adventist Church building.
Dad was vice chairman of the building committee for the first chapel in Yuma, and he was instrumental in getting the church to approve having air conditioning for their building, a first in the church.
Building the chapel was a labor of love involving all family members, by helping with the actual building to helping raise funds through the barbecues that were put on.
In 1958, the Yuma district was made a stake by Elder Mark E. Peterson.
Dad was set apart as a counselor to stake president Marion Turley, and Mom was set apart as Stake Relief Society president.
At other times in Yuma, Dad was president of missionary work in the California Mission, senior president of the 441st Quorum of 70s, branch president again for an additional 3 years, and later district president of the Yuma district.
Because of the size of the Yuma district, their service and callings involved a great deal of travel, sometimes 300 or more miles each weekend. As the branch president, he counseled and married over 100 couples, some of whom later went to the temple to be sealed.
Mom and Dad were both busy in the community too. Dad was a Standard Oil distributor for over 40 years, and he was a lifetime member of the Kiwanis Club.
At Christmas time, we children looked forward to the Kiwanis annual Christmas party.
Dad was elected to a 5-year term on the high school board, served on the district scout committee, and served on the county fair board.
Mom also was busy serving, working in the PTA, the Red Cross, the election board.
At church, she was a counselor in the YWMIA, a Mime teacher for 10 years, Stake Relief Society president for 13 years, Relief Society teacher for a number of years, and a primary worker for 15 years. She was always 100% visiting teacher.
Together they served as state missionaries, and that was a choice experience in their lives.
Mom and Dad felt blessed to be able to entertain many of the general authorities in their home while they were visiting in Yuma.
We as kids always were excited about these visits and got to be a part of things too. Nancy remembers getting to play a piano duet with Apostle Spencer W. Kimball when he came to our home.
Some other general authorities that we hosted were Ezra Taft Benson, Nathan Eldon Tanner, Howard W. Hunter, Sterling W. Sill, Robert L. Simpson, and Mark E. Peterson.
As we grew up, Mom and Dad taught us the value of work and gave us plenty of chances to do so. And we always had fun times together on family trips. Extended family was very important to them, and we missed very few family reunions, and were able to spend much time with our grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. The folks encouraged us in our education and saw that we had the chance to develop our talents. All of us were able to graduate from college. Bruce and Jim filled missions, and we all married in the temple.
In 1970, Dad retired after 40 years with Standard Oil Company. Soon after Dad's retirement, the folks left Yuma and moved to Mesa, Arizona, to 1326 East Downing.
In July 1971, they were called as temple workers at the Arizona Temple and served till December 1977.
During these years, they were blessed with many special experiences. Mother was able to help many brides and saw many of the maids she had taught come in for their endowments.
The following few years brought some sorrow to their life as Mom went through her battle with Alzheimer's disease.
Dad was devoted and loving as he cared for his sweetheart of 50-plus years. Because he had health limitations of his own, however, it became necessary to find a place for Mom to receive care away from home.
In answer to prayers, we found Helen Gause, the dear lady who cared for Mom in her home until Mom passed away. She treated Mom like her own mother, and Dad cared for Helen like a daughter.
The summer after Mom died, Dad took a bad fall at home, which resulted in a broken neck. This necessitated quite a stay in the hospital and the wearing of a halo brace for many weeks while his injuries healed.
This was quite a challenge for him, but he came through it and was ultimately able to be up and around with a walker. However, he needed enough help that it was decided he should stay with Nancy and Clyde's family in Tempe.
He sold his home in Mesa, and a bedroom and bathroom were added to the Christensen home, so he could be close to help when he needed it. It was here he lived for 4.5 years until he passed away in February of 1992.
Mom and Dad left a posterity of 5 children, 39 grandchildren, 98 great-grandchildren, and 10 great-great-grandchildren at the present time.
They also left a legacy of devotion to the gospel of Jesus Christ, a life of love and service to family and community.
They were in turn loved and respected for their honesty, dependability, empathy, and example of Christ-like living.
My dad was the first and most important man in my life, and the standard I compared all others to. He was strong and tall, very important and always busy. Sometimes as I grew into my teen years, it seemed that he didn't quite understand me or what I wanted to do. I did feel comfortable about talking to him when he said no, or that this is not a good idea, and then he would explain further. Teenagers are often opinionated and sure of their point of view, and that it's the best solution. I was, after all, Dad's first child, and this was all new to him, too. Mom usually referred major decisions to him and stood by whatever he decided. She was a very supportive wife, and he left the everyday guidance up to her. She did have an opinion, and at times did not agree, but any disagreements were settled between them when they were alone. There was unity and strength that we felt, which made us feel loved and safe. We always ate dinner together with family prayer and a blessing on food. Mom was a very good cook and prepared balanced and nutritious meals that were beautifully presented. She served us a variety of foods that she enjoyed making. I learned that it was important to set the table correctly with everything in its proper place. She loved to use pretty tablecloths and napkins and dishes for us, as well as when company came, and encouraged good manners and polite conversation. We often had company for dinner, friends, missionaries, or church leaders that were listening. I am so thankful for her teaching and example of being a wife and a mother. She was a loving grandmother who came to help when each of the children were born. She made lovely clothes for the girls and for their dolls, too. She loved beautiful plants and flowers and was an amazing gardener. Both Mom and Dad had strong testimonies of the truth of the restored gospel and served willingly in church and community. They could see the needs of others and were kind and supportive to all friends and neighbors. They both grew up in quite humble circumstances, but learned in their families to appreciate and manage well the Lord had blessed them with. They never felt poor, and neither did we. One of Mom's favorite sayings was, "Use it up, wear it out, make it do without." When I was in my cross-stitch phase, I made her a sampler with these words stitched on it. I often find myself thinking or saying some of the funny and wise things they used in teaching it. They were amazing examples of courage and faith. I miss them, but think of them often with love and thankfulness. I couldn't have had better parents. Jim and I met in the summer of 1949 at Arrowhead Music Camp. That summer, he was introduced to the gospel and bought his first Book of Mormon for 50 cents when he went to church with the fellow campers. It took a few years for him to know that joining the church was the right thing to do, and in 1952 was baptized. We were married in the Mesa Temple in January of 1954 and began our life together in Phoenix. Our children came quickly, and by our 5th anniversary, we had just added our 4th child. 2 more children were added in the next 10 years. Paul was born on January 5, 1955 in Phoenix. He married Lou Ann Randall in the Los Angeles Temple. They have raised 6 children in Mesa. Lori is married to Delvin Merrill in the Mesa Temple, and they have a daughter, Brenna. They have just completed building a home in Snowflake. Jennifer is married to Andy Vaughn. They were married in the Manti Temple and have 4 children, Alec, Nathan, Annalise, and Elizabeth. They live in Norfolk, Virginia. Jared is single and lives in Boston, where he is working and attending school. Eric is married to Aaron Klaus. They were married in the Mesa Temple. They live in Chandler, where they just have bought a new home. Brian recently returned from his mission to Tennessee, Knoxville area, and is going to school. Katie lives in Mesa, works, and goes to school. Mark was born on April 6, 1956 in Phoenix. He married Pamela Hutchings in the Los Angeles Temple. They live in Chandler. Michelle is married to Jordan Valentine, and they have a daughter, Lydia. They live in Memphis, Tennessee. Teresa is working on her master's degree in nursing and works as a nurse in Tucson, Arizona. Daniel is in his last year at BYU in civil engineering. Angela graduated from BYU in April and is now working on her master's degree. Joseph is a senior in high school. Chrissy is a sophomore. They keep Mom and Dad from being all alone in Chandler. Ruth was born June 21, 1957 in Phoenix. She married Dale Sessions in the Salt Lake Temple. They have 4 children, Kristen, who's married to Glenn Halterman. They were married in 2004 in the Salt Lake Temple. They have 2 children, Austin 2, and Lauren Lynn 1. They live in Chandler. Adam is working in St. George and is seriously courting a young lady from Delta who works and goes to school in Cedar City. Kevin is a senior in high school and Ryan a freshman, and with all their activities, there's never a dull moment at their house. Anne was born January 18, 1959. She was married to Arthur King in Upland by her father, who was then the bishop. Their children are James, who lives and works in Hawaii, Justine, who attends University of Redlands, where she made the dean's list and will study in Vienna for this semester in the spring. Alexandra is a freshman in high school, and Ashley is in her 2nd year of junior high. They are 13 months apart and keep things exciting at their house. Gail was born on October 22, 1961 in Phoenix. She was married to Stephen Ellsworth in the Los Angeles Temple. They live in Mesa with their 6 children. Amy married Spencer Schieffer in the San Diego Temple. Their baby boy was born in July. Julie goes to MCC and works for her dad. Chelsea is a senior in high school. Sean is also in high school. Harley is a quiet, studious junior high student. And Austin is perpetual motion embodied, loves school, friends, scouts, and moving. Linda joined our family 8 years later in Upland on August 7, 1969. She lives on a mini ranch in Flagstaff with many animals she cares for lovingly. She is a paramedic and is rebuilding her home a little at a time, mostly by herself. Jim and I were married almost 34 years when he died at the age of 58. 20 years ago today, we had the wonderful example of my parents. Jim considered them his parents too, and the gospel that they lived all their lives.
I was very fortunate to be a part of a very special family. Dad took me with him to work whenever I could go and taught me about being friendly, honest, dependable, trustworthy, a friend to work and do a good job. He taught me how to be thrifty, generous, and kind. He let me know that he loved me and how much he trusted me and wanted me to succeed. He did this by example. He taught me to respect my mother, women, my elders. What a great gift. Mom loved me, fed me well, taught me to love plants that were good and dislike weeds, and taught me how to take care of each kind. I followed her about like a puppy, learning to sing and be happy. What a great gift. My life was always good, but it got better when my sister Nancy introduced me to one of her friends, Deanne Hall, at Christmas Eve dance held in the Indian Chapel in Somerton, the day I returned from my mission in 1956. A little less than 3 years later, on September 1st, 1959, we were married in the Los Angeles Temple. Our family started to grow quickly. Kevin was born in 1960, Donnie in 1962, Julie in 1963, Lisa in 1965, and Cindy in 1968. Kevin married Linda Snow in 1982 in the Provo Temple, and they have 5 children: Matthew, Michael, Andrea, Brian, Carrie. Matthew married Julia McGowan, and they have 1 child, Alexis. Donnie married Peter Haynes in 1982 in the Los Angeles Temple. They have 7 children: JJ, Colby, Becky, Hallie, Sean, Max, and DJ. Julie was married in 1984 in the Hawaiian Temple and has 6 children: Jacob, Nani, Joseph, Moani, Joshua, and Caitlin. Nani married Justin Glass in December of 2005 in the Oakland Temple. They have a daughter, Avena. Lisa married Paul Jarvis in 1985 in the Los Angeles Temple, and they have 5 children: Erica, Danielle, Devin, Natalie, and James. Cindy was so perfect she lived only 4 hours. If 1 plus 1 equals 37, wow, what will the next 20 years bring?
I always knew Mama and Daddy loved me, and I loved being with them. On many of our vacations and trips, we traveled at night when it was cooler. Quite often, Daddy and I would be the only ones awake, and I'd stand behind Daddy's seat. That was before seat belts. We would talk and sing silly songs, or he'd tell me stories. What a special time that was for me. On a trip through Oregon one day, we made camp and discovered a blackberry patch. After picking and eating our fill, there were many berries left. Never wanting to waste anything, Mama proceeded to make jam over the campfire, thus creating another memory for us to take home. Mama was so smart. Saturdays, we all worked together in the house and in the yard. Daddy loved a neat, well-kept yard, so we all learned to pull weeds, making sure to get the root. Mama loved beautiful flowers and could grow most anything, even in the Arizona heat. In September, she planted sweet peas, providing beautiful springtime blossoms for family and friends. Their sweet fragrance is still one of my favorite things and reminds me of Mama. We had family nights regularly. Before there was a special night and lesson materials provided, but we had our songs, our prayers, we read scriptures, we shared stories from the children's friend in the improvement era, played games, shared talents, and had treats. Daddy's favorite in the summer was half a cantaloupe filled with yummy Shamrock Dairy vanilla ice cream. Mama was an accomplished seamstress, making us many everyday things and special clothes for Easter and Christmas. She also had an eye for bargains. When she wanted new draperies, she took instructions from a friend and made her own. They were beautiful, and she saved a lot, carefully using the money Daddy earned. I thank my Heavenly Father each day for these wonderful, loving parents who lived what they taught us. Now to introduce our family. I am the third child of Don and Louise, Nancy Louise Westover, born March 21, 1939. I married Clyde S. Christensen June 16, 1961. Our first child, Eric Dean, was born March 30, 1962. He married Sue McLeod June 5, 1992, and they have 4 boys, Eric McLeod, Kent Andrew, Joshua, Robert, and Benjamin Clyde, and they live in South Carolina. Next in our family is our daughter, Kirsten Marie, born July 13, 1963. She married Theodore Stewart Warren, January 12, 1996. Their children are Grayson Stewart and Henry Clyde. Their home is Tacoma, Washington. Victor Clyde joined the family April 29, 1965. He married Esther Henriette Shabbat February 1, 1992. They were divorced in March 2006. Their children are Jesse Gabrielle and Daniel Elijah. They live in Tempe, Arizona. Next to come is our second daughter, Erin Lee. Born September 30, 1967. She was married to Paul Lewis Thomas on July 26, 1986, and they are the parents of 3 daughters, Megan Carissa, Alexandra Page, Devin Ariel, and a son, Jackson Lewis. They make their home in Gilbert, Arizona. Rex Alden was born July 8, 1970, the third of our 6 sons. Rex married Shirley Kimball March 13, 1992, and their family is made up of Emily Rebecca, Ashley Anna, McKay Kimball, Carolee Grace, and Ellie Magdalena. They also live in Gilbert, Arizona. We had another son, Donald Owen, on April 12, 1974. He married Melinda Suzanne Butler on March 5, 1999. Their children are Marguerite Louise and Roxy Clara, and are expecting baby number 3 in January. Tucson is their home. Brett Andrew was born July 1, 1977. He married Natasha Levenger August 20, 2005, and they have a daughter, Harper Sadie. Home for them is North Hollywood, California. Our last child is Russell Edwin, born July 24, 1981. On August 7, 2003, Russell was married to Debbie Annette Houston. They have a son, William Russell, and welcomed baby girl Grace Maureen, born July 30, 2007. At present, they live in Flagstaff, Arizona.
My memory is that of always feeling loved and secure with Mom and Dad. Home was special. I was always proud of my parents. They were hard workers and dependable, and expected us to be. Dad was firm but gentle and kind, and a real leader in our home, church, and community. Mother was quiet yet strong and capable. I attribute my love of children, cooking, homemaking, singing, gardening, crocheting, quilting, and visiting teaching to my mother. She could do anything, and by her example gave me the confidence to try new things and love learning. She taught me to sew and to care about others. Mother and Dad both taught by their example how to be a good example to my friends, many of whom were not members of the church. I remember my parents' trust in me. I remember family prayer, kneeling around the kitchen table, goodbye kisses in the morning, and good night kisses before bed, laughing and singing silly songs on family vacations. I remember Daddy and Mother taking us to Taylor when I was about 10 years old to see the prophet, President David O. McKay. Oh, how my young heart burned within me as the Spirit witnessed to me that this tall, handsome, stately man was indeed a prophet of God. I remember being caught in a flash flood in Oak Creek Canyon when I was 15 and being saved by the tender mercy of my Heavenly Father and being rescued by Daddy, my hero, who ran hard and long and scaled a tall gate to get to me even before the ranger arrived. I remember catching a glimpse of my dad's love for my mother when we children helped him surprise her with a new set of diamond rings on their 25th wedding anniversary. I remember Daddy telling me with tears in his eyes, long after Mother had gone, how he missed her and looked forward to being with her again. I miss them both. I hope in some small ways I am like them. They truly are goodly parents, and I look forward to being with them again. I am the fourth child of Don and Louise, born early on Christmas morning of 1942 in Yuma, Arizona, and appropriately named Carol. I met David Stanley Parkin at an opening social in our BYU ward, and we were married after graduation on June 27, 1964 in the Arizona Temple. Our first two children, Sean David and Tasha Louise, were born in Bountiful, Utah in 1966 and 1968. Trenton Stanley was born in Whittier, California in 1970. Jason Christopher was born in 1973. Jeremy Spencer in 1977. Marin Adele in 1979, and Jonathan Andrew in 1982, all in Glendale, California. We now live in Layton, Utah. Sean married Bonnie Phillips in the Idaho Falls Temple in May of 1989. They have 5 children: Alyssa, 17, Aubrey, 14, Caitlin, 12, Christopher, 7, and Cameron, 22 months. They live in Panguitch, Utah, where Sean is a dentist. Tasha, our first daughter and second child, is now living near us in Layton, Utah, after teaching school for 10 years in California. She is working in the family real estate business with Dave and Jeremy. Trenton is living in Duarte, California, and is an emergency room EMT at Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles. Jason married Rebecca Chandler in the Portland Temple in December of 1995. They have 3 children: Olivia Carroll, 8, Chandler, 6, and Davis, 4. They are living in Clovis, California, where Jason practices law. Jeremy married Miriam Lom in the Mount Timpanogos Temple in July of 2000. They also live in Layton, where Jeremy works with Dave and Tasha in real estate. They have 1 child, Ty Jeremy, who is 2 years old. Marin married Aaron Lewis in December of 1999 in the Los Angeles Temple. They have 2 daughters, Grace 4 and Eve 2. They live in Turlock, California, where Aaron is in real estate. Jonathan married Casey Ann Whelan, September 2004, in the Logan Temple. They have 2 daughters, Chloe 2 and Savannah 4 months. They reside in Rexburg, Idaho, where John will soon be graduating from BYU, Idaho. All of our children and their spouses are college graduates, and 6 are return missionaries. They all honor their parents and are proud and grateful for their wonderful heritage.
We had great parents and lots of great memories. To share a few, at an early age I was taught by my dad to mow and edge our yard with great pride. In spite of the fact that it was work, I remembered the satisfaction of completing the job so as to pass Dad's inspection. Some of Dad's favorite work-related one-liners were, "If it's worth doing right the first time." And, "If you don't have time to do it right first time, when do you suppose you'll have time to do it over again?" My ultimate work-related memories with Dad came one day just after I had gotten my driver's license and was working at the bulk plant. He was in a bind to get a load of gas to 9732. This was one of the standard stations, and he trusted me to have it to them all on my own. I totally felt like a man that day. After Carol graduated from high school, I had Mom and Dad to myself for a few years. One of my favorite remembrances of Mom was when her creative and inventive cooking streak would come out in Dad's occasional absence for steak meetings on Saturday afternoon usually. Dad was pretty much a meat and potatoes guy, so when he was home, Mom never ventured too far from his favorites, but with Dad gone, we would try any number of other culinary adventures. This was a fun, adventuresome side of Mom that I learned to love and enjoy. An important part of Mom's love vocabulary was expressed as she took great pride and enjoyment in feeding her family. On these occasions, I learned how providently the butcher of a cow was approached during Mom's youth, and the many ways every last part and parcel of the butchered animal was used, from the brains to the stomach, from the tongue to the kidneys. All had its warm remembrance in my mom's mind. I was the 5th and last of Donna and Louise Westover children. I was born in Yuma, Arizona on July 22, 1945. I met and courted the girl of my dreams, Vicki Pauline Adams of Orem, Utah. We were married and sealed in the Mesa, Arizona temple on February 6, 1971. In time, we have become the parents of 12 children, considering them our greatest earthly treasure. John Adams Westover arrived while I was in dental school in Chicago on October 31, 1972. He was married to Arwen Bertie Rasmussen in the Salt Lake Temple. This marriage was blessed with 2 children, Adeline Bertie and Enoch Erickson. Arwen chose separation and eventually divorced John. 3 years later, John married Sonia Zhongying of Chongqing, China. Their lives have been sweetened and enlivened to date by the arrival of their first child, Vicki Westover, on the mainland of China. We were next graced with 3 girls, Leah, Anna, and Julia. Leah Pauline was born 13 April 1974 in Chicago. She married Jason Brown in the Mesa, Arizona temple. Their stewardship currently consists of Caleb, Savannah, Calissa, and Benjamin, with a 5th edition expected before the end of the year. Anna Louise arrived on the 20th of June 1975 in Great Lakes Naval Hospital, just in time to move to the Philippines. Anna married Sidney Taylor Myers in the Mesa Temple. They soon became parents of twin boys, Brig Stephen and Gunnar Bruce. Ashlyn Louise joined Brig and Gunnar's ranks. Then came Olivia Grace, and most recently Emery May. Julia Adele was our sweetest memory of a 3-year tour in the Philippines with the Navy. Born on March 8, 1977 in the Naval Hospital, Subic Bay, she soon grew up and married Colton Roy Hall in the Mesa, Arizona temple. Their current claims to fame include Victoria, Camden Roy, Caden Jacob, and were recently joined by the sweetness of Cosette. Joseph Erickson was the beginning of the Brothers Four and was born on September 10th, 1978. He became complete when he met and married Lisa Whitaker of Orange County, California, in the San Diego Temple. Their lives have been sweetened and enlivened to date by Kaya Spring, Malia Sky, and recently joined by Eva Rain. Joshua Lee joined us on February 15th, 1980. He is anxiously engaged in all the right things and is patiently but proactively looking forward to the eternal engagement. Jared Solomon arrived in the most popular month of July on the 25th day, 1982. He found his sweetheart in the trim, fit, and fun form of Lacey Stradling, and they were married in the Mesa, Arizona temple. Jacob Bruce also chose July as his birth month and came to us on the 27th day in 1985. His current assignment is that of representing our Savior and Redeemer, the Lord Jesus Christ, to his brothers and sisters in the Canada Winnipeg mission. Rebecca Elizabeth ushered in our second feminine trio, joining us in the month of Great Gifts on December 2nd, 1988. After graduating recently from high school, she is excitedly and capably approaching the next and most important chapters of her life. Sarah Catherine preceded her sister Tara Rachel in birth by 16 minutes in an incredible burst of sweetness on the 11th day of August in 1990, and our lives were forever changed in the blink of an eye. Jordan Daniel first appeared on the scene the 8th of May 1994, representing a great reward for persistence, as he was born on Mother's Day.
We thank all of you who have spent the last hour with us watching this video in celebration of Mom and Dad's 100th birthday celebration. We hope you've been able to gain a better knowledge and appreciation of our family and its history, and that you can see why our parents and our heritage are so important to us. We have made enough copies of this video on DVDs to distribute a copy to each of Mom and Dad's children and grandchildren. We also plan to distribute a copy to others who might be interested, whether they are in attendance today or not. I would like to acknowledge and give thanks to those who are responsible for the creation and the production of this video. To my husband Dave, whose organization, efforts, and creative ideas went into this video. Dave was helped by our son Sean with the technical aspects of the video. To my sister Nancy's husband Clyde for all his work in scanning, organizing, and digitally copying old family pictures we used, and for his help in assisting Dave in this production. To Mom and Dad's daughters Joanne, Nancy, and Carol, who each contributed to the dialogue that introduced Mom and Dad and their life together. To each of Mom and Dad's 5 children who prepared and recorded that part of the dialogue that shared each of their memories and introduced their families to us. And to all others who supplied Dave and Clyde pictures of their families that were used in this video. A lot of effort went into this production. Hopefully, all our efforts have resulted in a treasure that each of us can save for years and that we can share with the rest of our family as it grows, so all can learn of and emulate our wonderful parents and share in our pride of them and of our great heritage.